are also diving into one of the most important tech stories of our time, being Neuralink. Now, you've probably heard about it because brain chips sound like something straight out of Black Mirror, but this is no longer science fiction. Real patients are already using it. People who were paralyzed are controlling computers with their thoughts. And now the latest update is that Neuralink said is building a surgical robot that could eventually reach almost any part of the brain. That is a huge jump because now we are no longer just talking about moving a mouse cursor. We are talking about potentially restoring speech, movement, maybe even vision one day. And that is a massive conversation we have to talk. Then we move into the AI investment race. Yes, everything is about AI today, because like everyone, when it comes to AI, talks about Nvidia. Everyone chases the flashy AI stocks. But what if the most important AI company isn't Nvidia at all? What if it's the company quietly making money no matter who wins? And that company we're covering today is TSMC. Because whether it's Nvidia, AMD, Google, Amazon, or Microsoft, they all need TSMC. So is this actually the smartest AI play in the market? Or is Taiwan geopolitical risk still the elephant in the room? Of course, we'll break that all down on Roxham TV. And then we'll go into Bitcoin and also crypto because Bitcoin's next $1 trillion story may already be starting. And it's not just about price going up. It's about Wall Street rebuilding traditional finance on top of Bitcoin. So products like STRC and SATA, Bitcoin-backed yield products, digital credit markets. This is where Bitcoin starts becoming more than just buy and hold. And here's the real question. Does this make Bitcoin stronger, or does it recreate the exact same financial system Bitcoin was supposed to replace? That's going to be a real important debate for sure. We also talk about, well, Liberty Financial, the Trump-linked crypto project is back in the headlines. They are publicly denying rumors that the project is falling apart, but there is legal drama, some stablecoin questions, social media chaos, and we'll break down what's noise and what's actually matters. And yes, I'll tell you exactly why I want our community to stay away from that project being WLFI token. Then geopolitics, because Russia and North Korea appear to be getting closer together. We already talked about like how fast the bridge connection between the two came together. That was already a major signal. Now, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is openly praising troops who reportedly chose death over capture while fighting alongside Russia. That tells you something important. This relationship is becoming so deep and very strategic, and frankly, it just got darker. And finally, one of the wildest stories that the public still refuses to move on from is Jeffrey Epstein. Because nearly 7 years after his death, a possible handwritten suicide note has now been released. And instantly, the internet is asking, basically, why now? The court said this is about transparency tied to another legal case, but given how controversial this case has been from day one, you already know the story is going to trigger some fresh debate. So today's show, like whether you are here for AI or Bitcoin or macro geopolitics, or just trying to understand where this crazy world is heading, you are in the right place. So there is a lot to cover today. Let's get straight into the biggest, very controversial story of, in a while in recent history. So here we have the federal judge in New York has released a handwritten note said to be linked to Jeffrey Epstein. And naturally, people are asking basically why now? Because Epstein died back in 2019, and this case has been surrounded by public suspicion ever since. Like the document is actually described as a possible suicide note. It was reportedly found after Epstein's earlier alleged suicide attempt back in July 2019. That was just weeks before his death. And according to the report, the note was discovered by Epstein's former cellmate. So the note reportedly says, they investigated me for months and found nothing, and ended basically with language suggesting someone choosing their own time to say goodbye. And this part matters because the court released a document, the court released a document, but like the court did not verify the Epstein actually wrote it. That's very important. That's being treated as a document tied to a court case, not definitive proof of authorship. So viewers, like right now, we should separate a document was released from the content, a confirmed fact. The note became public because only because the New York Times requested access, but still, the timing naturally raises questions because this comes nearly 7 years after Epstein's death. Because from the very beginning, the Epstein case triggered huge public skepticism. Officially, Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide in a Manhattan jail while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges involving minors. But many details fueled public distrust, including reports of broken cameras or sleeping guards and procedure failures. That's why the phrase, like Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself, absolutely exploded online for years. It became one of the biggest conspiracy talking points in recent memory. But as of how could this change the situation, if you ask me? Like, honestly, not much, at least not immediately. Because unless the note is independently authenticated, it doesn't settle the big questions. It adds another piece to the public record, but it doesn't automatically prove anything. I think the deeper story here is trust. Like when institutions make major mistakes, people stop believing official narratives. And once trust is broken, even legitimate explanations become harder for the public to accept. And that's exactly what happened with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, here's the fact, like there are very two extreme people. I would say personally, I would avoid. Like the first group is that to blindly assume every conspiracy theory online is true. The second group is to blindly assume every official explanation is automatically correct. The reality, I would say, maybe probably like this case became so controversial because real procedure failures did happen, is documented, but it doesn't automatically just validate all the theory online. So the final take here, a possible Jeffrey Epstein suicide note is now public nearly like 7 years later, but the biggest unanswered questions remain unchanged. Was the official story even accurate? Why were there so many failures? And why does this case still trigger so much public distrust years later? Because once confidence in institutions breaks, the story never really ends. So I'll leave it for you guys to decide, well, what actually happened with Jeffrey Epstein. But let's move on to geopolitics, and because we actually talked about this on Roxham TV a little bit between North Korea and Russia, and they are indeed building even closer ties together. Remember, we covered that new bridge connecting the two countries. There are more new infrastructure being built between these two countries. And now we have more evidence that this relationship is deepening. And this time it is military. So Kim Jong-un has publicly, he has praised the North Korean troops who blew themselves up with grenades rather than being captured by Ukrainian forces. That is, of course, a shocking statement because this is the clearest public confirmation yet of a very extreme battlefield policy. According to reports, North Korean troops fighting alongside Russia were reportedly told not to be captured alive, and if necessarily, just take their own lives instead. And what makes this like this significant is that Kim Jong-un himself referenced it so publicly. He reportedly praised these soldiers who chose self-destruction to defend nation honor. That's very important because until now, much of this came from intelligence reports or battlefield claims. Now this is actually coming directly from Kim Jong-un, the North Korea's leadership. And back in 2024, North Korea has already reportedly sent around 14,000 troops to support Russia's war effort. And according to South Korean and Ukrainian estimates, thousands were killed or at least wounded. Some reports suggest over 6,000 casualties. Of course, that is a massive number. And as for North Korea, why they're doing this, probably in return, they are likely receiving things they are very desperately needing for, maybe food, fuel, cash, technology. So I would say this is more like a transactional allies between two of the world's most sanctioned countries in the world. So first, there is the military cooperation, then infrastructure being built. Yeah, yesterday we covered the bridge, and now there's some museum being built in 6 months. If we take a look at the satellite images, back in October, literally just 2025, there was nothing here on this land. But right now, if we go to April 2026, there's some buildings already. So being done in just a matter of few months, like the speed wise. Not gonna lie, it's quite fast. And this is no longer some quiet side arrangement. This is becoming a very visible strategic relationship for many Western audience, if we go back to what Kim Jong-un said publicly, was praising some soldiers taking their own life. For Western media, Western audience will find it very difficult to accept the truth or basically soldiers taking their own life just to avoid capture. It sounds very crazy, very shocking. But North Korea's political system operates very different from the West. The regime heavily emphasized loyalty, sacrifice, and absolute obedience to the state. And being captured alive may be viewed as dishonor. That doesn't make, that of course it doesn't make it less disturbing, but at least I think it helps explain the logic behind it. And as for Russia, they have suffered huge losses in this war, and long wars become manpower wars. Even if North Korean troops are not elite by modern NATO standards, bodies still matter in prolonged attrition warfare, especially when sanctions and domestic pressures continue building. So this is, I would say, where it gets interesting. North Korea has limited international partners, very few indeed. Russia is one of the only major powers willing to openly cooperate. Of course, that matters a lot for Kim Jong-un. But here's the concern. Because if North Korea gains battlefield experience, that changes things. Real war experience does matter, like combat coordination, logistics, weapons handling, operation lessons. Even failed deployments create learning that could have long-term regional implications. Another, like what we have known for so far for sure, is that countries under pressure from Western systems are increasingly building parallel relationships, maybe in trade, in military cooperation like this, in infrastructure, technology exchange. That matters because sanctions work differently when isolated states cooperate with each other. So final take when it comes to this kind of news, this is no longer just some diplomatic symbolism. This is infrastructure, military coordination, and now public ideology alignment around battlefield sacrifice. That tells us something very important. This allies is becoming much deeper, more strategic, and potentially much more dangerous over time. Of course, that's why we have to cover here on Roxham TV. But like right now, we are hitting on a short break. When we come back, we are diving our tools into AI because AI is doing tremendous thing and it's developing at a rapid pace. That's why we have to cover every single day here on the channel because every single day there happen to be something surprising. And if you are investing in AI, you do want to stay for this next gem I'm covering, being TSMC. So do stay with us after the break.
This is Alex. Alex spends most of his time thinking like a trader, still deciding what to do with his Bitcoin. While Alex waits for the perfect entry, this is Laura. She's watching the S&P drop. Everyone is suddenly a macro expert. She doesn't panic. This is Tom. No screens, no noise, no stress. While Tom focuses on his swing, his Bitcoin focuses on compounding. Because Bitcoiners don't want more dollars. They want more Bitcoin.
I want more Bitcoin.
The best move is letting your Bitcoin work while you plan the next one. Grow by Roxham. One currency, one place.
Welcome back to Roxham TV and thanks for sticking around with us after the break. We're now diving into the whole AI world because everyone talks about Nvidia, some talk about AMD, some chase the next AI winner in memory, power, or networking. But what if the most important AI company is actually the one making money no matter who wins? And that company happened to be TSMC. And honestly, the AI story may just end there. Like, let's keep this simple if this is the first time you're hearing about TSMC, because it is the silent giant when it comes to the AI sector. If Nvidia builds the brain, TSMC will build the factory that makes the brain. For example, like Nvidia's Blackwell chips, it's actually made by TSMC. Well, what about AMD, right? Is another giant. So AMD AI chip is also made by TSMC. And same for Google TPUs, TSMC, Amazon Trainium, also at TSMC. But you guess it, like what about Microsoft AI chips? Well, it happened to be TSMC as well. That's the crazy part. All these tech giants are competing with each other, but end up they all rely on the same company. Normally in tech, like if one company loses, another wins. But when it comes to TSMC, it doesn't care who wins. Nvidia wins, of course, TSMC will get the benefit, will get paid. AMD gains any market share, TSMC will get paid as well. Big tech builds their own chips. Guess what? TSMC still get paid. That makes this a very different business. This is not a normal chip stock. This is more like selling shovels during a gold rush. Before AI, TSMC was basically a manufacturing business. So what they would do is that customers would send chips design and TSMC would make that chip. And of course, they get paid. Simple as that. But right now, TSMC is becoming something much bigger because AI chips are no longer just chips anymore. They are the entire system. and TSMC get paid at multiple layers. This is why it get interesting, because TSMC makes the actual AI chip, then they also help package everything together. Maybe it's memory or compute connections all packed into one high performance system. So instead of charging just once, they get to charge twice, and maybe even more in the future. That's why margins are so insane. And that's why I'm liking what I see when it comes to this chart. Again, like hitting all-time high right now is sitting at $256 per stock. TSMC made over $120 billion in revenue last year. And when it comes to net profit, it's well over $55 billion. That's insane for what is technically a manufacturing company, because manufacturing business usually have lower margins. Factories are very expensive, machines are expensive, expansion is of course more expensive, but TSMC is somehow becoming more profitable even while spending more. That tells you pricing power is real. And the most powerful thing of TSMC is that they have the customers locked in. Like people like to compare, oh, what about Samsung? What about Intel? Isn't the same case, right? Well, in theory, yes, but in reality, it's not easy because we're asking these giants to switch over to another chip provider. Like switching chip manufacturers is painful, very expensive, time consuming, very risky, especially when you're building the world's most advanced AI chips. Like if you think about it, like Nvidia maybe suddenly moved production elsewhere. And what if that quality dropped? That would be a disaster. So once customers are locked in, switching becomes very difficult. And this is honestly the biggest bull case for TSMC stock, because TSMC may no longer just be a chip manufacturer. It may becoming AI infrastructure, because think about it, its advanced chip capacity is booked years ahead. Its packaging capacity is very tight. Customers are paying more just to secure those supply. That sounds less like manufacturing and more like owning critical infrastructure like cloud data centers or power grids or ASML in chip machines. Now, even if we compare TSMC to Nvidia, things are just going to get more interesting, because I hate to break it to you guys, and I hate to say this to Nvidia stockholders. Nvidia actually has risk. Like big tech companies are building their own chips, margins may compress eventually, competition may increase, but TSMC is much less exposed, because even those competing chips may still be made by TSMC. That's the beauty of the business model, and that's why I'm bullish. However, just to hold your horse, I'm sure like after hearing what I said earlier, Jamie, I'm just gonna ape in and scoop up some TSMC. Of course, nothing is without risk. When it comes to the risk, the bigger risk right now is that what if AI spending eventually slow down? Right now, everyone is spending huge money on AI infrastructure, but the uncomfortable question is AI actually making enough money yet? And that's where the bad case comes in for the stock. AI spending is absolutely exploding. We have covered that numerous times on Roxham TV, but actual AI revenue still may not justify all this spending. I mean, take a look at OpenAI, right? Some estimates suggest that the industry is spending hundreds of billions of dollars while monetization is still catching up. If big tech slows AI spending, then of course TSMC will feel it first, because fewer AI chips get ordered. Simple as that. And then there's another obvious one, because I don't know if you know, TSMC, of course, is based in Taiwan. This is probably the biggest geopolitical risk in tech. If anything serious happens around Taiwan, global tech supply chains get hit immediately, not just for Bitcoin, not just for stocks, but everything. That risk is always there. Now, some investor would ask, is TSMC already too expensive? Like, look at this chart. It's not stopping. It doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon. Is it too expensive to get in? Well, that's a fair question. But compared to maybe other AI names, it actually doesn't look it actually looks more reasonable because unlike many AI companies selling the dreams, TSMC is already printing real profits, and that is the biggest difference if you ask me. If Nvidia is selling that AI dream, then TSMC is selling the picks and shovels. And often that's the safer business because in a gold rush, you don't always want to bet on which miner finds gold. Sometimes the smarter bet is actually the one selling the tools to everyone. And that's why we are paying attention here on the AI sector. All right, so let's move on to the second story. Second story of the financial segment of the show. We have to talk about Bitcoin. And I do want to spend some time diving deeper into the financial engine of how these things work. Especially, we are seeing the popularity increasing when it comes to Bitcoin financial products. And I feel like retail still don't really understand the gist of it, how institutions work, how TradFi work. And right now, since the two worlds are colliding and the line between the two are basically getting more blurry, I feel like maybe we need to spend some time, and it's going to be quite beneficial for everyone to know this. So most people, when they think of Bitcoin, it's quite simple. You just buy it, hold it, put it in your ledger, then hope the price will go up. But Wall Street is actually not only that. They're thinking much bigger. They are asking, can Bitcoin become the foundation of a whole new credit market? And if the answer is yes, this could become a multi-trillion-dollar business. And let's make this simple, because like traditional finance runs on credit. Banks would lend money, companies would issue debt, investors earn yield. That global credit market is worth roughly $300 trillion. Yes, that's trillion with a T. Now imagine bringing Bitcoin into that world. That's what digital credit is. So using Bitcoin-backed companies to issue income products that investors can buy. So instead of Bitcoin just sitting there, it becomes part of a financial machine. And when it comes to the whole Bitcoin financial product, of course, the first thing we could pop up in the mind is STRC or Michael Saylor. So Michael's strategy helped kick this off, not just by buying Bitcoin, but by turning Bitcoin into a financial tool. And that's where STRC comes in. STRC is Michael's strategy preferred stock product. So think of it like an income product. Investor buy it, they receive yield. MicroStrategy used that capital inside its broader Bitcoin strategy. So instead of selling Bitcoin directly to raise cash, they create financial products backed by the strength of the Bitcoin balance sheet, and that is a major shift. And this is also where things get interesting. Another company, so Strive, is now building a similar product called SATA. Take a symbol SATA. So if STLC is MicroStrategy digital credit product, then SATA is Strive's version. SATA currently offers a double-digit dividend yield. Strive, the company said, is actively designing this product to be lower volatility and attractive for income investors. And here's the interesting part. Strive itself owns both Bitcoin and STLC on its balance sheet, meaning these companies are starting to build out financial products on top of each other, and that's how financial ecosystems start forming. So the big idea here is quite simple. Bitcoin doesn't naturally generate income. There is so much criticism about Bitcoin, like no yield, no cash flow, no dividend. So what these companies are doing is that they are forming together and trying to create something great and solve that idea, like create products that give investors exposure to Bitcoin-linked financial upside, but with the yield attached. That makes Bitcoin more attractive to to traditional investors, especially income-focused investors. And according to executives speaking at Consensus, what they discussed during the panel, digital credit has already reached around $10 billion in less than a year. That's incredibly fast, if you ask me. Some are calling it one of the fastest product launches in capital markets history. That tells you institutional interest is very real. And this is where the math gets crazy. So when it comes to the global credit market, is worth $300 trillion. If Bitcoin-backed credit capture maybe just 1% of that, that's $3 trillion. That's the opportunity bulls are talking about. And honestly, that's why Wall Street gets so excited, because Wall Street understand credit market more, maybe more than they understand Bitcoin, the whole ideology. This is like Bitcoin growing up, if you ask me. Like Bitcoin stops being just digital gold and becomes more like collateral, credit backing, yield infrastructure, financial plumbing. That creates real structure demand, because now companies may need Bitcoin not just for speculation, but as part of actual capital market products. That's a completely different type of demand. This also explains why Michael Saylor sounds so different lately, because we cover that as well. He has been, I mean, he hasn't been, but he talks about selling those BTC, which they spend so much time stacking. They actually spent like years stacking up. Like Bitcoin Maxi always treat Bitcoin like a religion. And of course, we talk about that as being a different idea. Like it's not just like never sell ever, but Saylor sounds more like a businessman, because guess what? He happens to be one. Like his view is increasingly like, if selling some Bitcoin improves capital efficiency, supports dividends, or strengthens that balance sheet, then it's just smart business. That's very different from the cult-like narrative some retail or Bitcoin maxi would hold. And I'll say that's the difference here. Just a quick shout out. Right now, Roxum is doing this campaign, like introducing Roxum Bitcoin Payday. So we just talk about digital credit. Right now, they're doing this campaign, giving out like a STRC and SATA. We just discussed. So if you guys are interested in joining the campaign, make sure to go to X, follow at Roxum. And it's very easy. You just like follow the account, repost this, and then reply with your Roxum Exchange ID to join the free campaign. All right, so like let's go back to what we were discussing earlier. So digital credit. And let's be fair, like we talk about STLC and just now SATA, but there's still risk, like because it does introduce a lot of risk. The moment you financialize Bitcoin, you introduce leverage. There is more complexity, more structure risk, counterparty risk, and dependence on basically the whole investor confidence. That, I hate to break it to you, it sounds more like TradFi right now, traditional finance, which we know can break very badly. And here's another risk, key risk. So if Bitcoin enters a deep bear market, these structures get tested. Dividend obligations, of course, are still going to be here, it still exists. Investor confidence can crack though, funding conditions would tighten, and that's when stress shows up. And we have already saw that back in 2022, how ugly things can get. Strategies like MNOF dropped very badly, and MSTL got hit even harder than Bitcoin itself. So yes, there is still the risky layer here, like everyone as a responsible investor should actually know about. But like final take about this news, Bitcoin was created to challenge TradFi. Now TradFi is rebranding itself on top of Bitcoin. That is just the irony we have to deal with. Products like STLC and SATA show this trend is accelerating fast. So the big question is, Does this make Bitcoin stronger by increasing adoption, or does it slowly recreate the same very fragile financial system Bitcoin was meant to escape? That's the real debate we have to think about, and we have to watch very closely here on Roxham TV. All right, so let's shift gears from Bitcoin to another crypto project we have been talking about here on Roxham TV and even earlier on Jam Crypto. So we talk about the Liberty Financial, WLFI. I'm sure you guys remember that because it's the Donald Trump linked crypto project that made a lot of noise last cycle back in 2025. Well, now the team is publicly denying rumors that the whole thing is falling apart. And honestly, this story is getting messy. So what happened is that Donald J. Trump and Donald Trump Jr. and Liberty Financial CEO came out publicly to deny online claims that the project is collapsing. The rumors included claims that the Trump family was distancing itself, the business was struggling, and questions around the stablecoin reserves. The response that we got is that, oh, those are just fake narrative, probably bot-driven attacks and social media speculation. So the first question, like asked after watching this news, the first question I asked is that what triggered this panic in the first place? Apparently, part of the panic came after the project changed its website. People noticed the Trump family names disappearing from certain sections, and immediately, of course, social media did what social media always does, started assuming the family abandoned the project. And Trump Jr. basically laughed it off, saying the website changed for a few minutes and suddenly people created this giant narrative. But remember, like when it comes to the so-called DAX, decentralized finance, is supposed to be a DeFi platform, right? What they also promise is that there'll be a stablecoin, but it happens to be another part of the story. So the team defended the stablecoin called USD1. They claim it is fully backed, and they say users can verify reserves on-chain through the infrastructure setup. Now, whether the market fully trusts that, that's a different question. Because in crypto, proof of reserves conversations always matter, especially after what happened with past failures. And when it comes to the project, let me clarify this. I am really glad and I'm really proud of myself that I told my community last year to stay away from WLFI. Hopefully, none of our viewers lost any money from this project because this was always one of those projects where branding was so much louder than the fundamentals. There was a lot of hype, of course, is related to the Trump family. There was a lot of politics here, big names. But big names are not the same as solid business. That distinction, of course, matters. Crypto has this habit. So maybe some celebrity trying to launch NFT or political name, really famous founder, huge attention, and then retail comes in, then boom, there's some questions start to pop up. Maybe some legal fight. Legal fight always happen. And people suddenly ask where the fundamentals were. We have seen this movie before, and many times, I would say. And to be fair, just to balance it off, just because there is some drama, it doesn't automatically mean the company is collapsing. Crypto companies sue each other all the time. I mean, not just crypto companies, but like particularly US companies like to sue each other all the time anyways. Public disputes always happen, like narratives can absolutely be manipulated online. That's true. So fair analysis like means separating noise from facts. Right now, the confirmed facts are there is legal dispute. The company is publicly denying collapse rumors, and market trust is clearly being tested. So the bigger picture here, this is also part of crypto growing up. Think about it, like the wild west era where branding alone could carry projects forever. That looks like it's fading away. Markets are asking tougher questions right now, like where is the revenue? Where is the transparency? Where is the legal clarity? What about the real product? And I would say that sounds more like a healthy industry in the long term. So long term wise, Liberty Financial say it is not falling apart. Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't, but the bigger lesson remains the same. In crypto, hype is not the due diligence, and political connections are not risk management. And that's why our viewers on Roxham TV should always separate attention from actual fundamentals. So we'll take a short break from here. When we come back, we are diving into more AI news because like AI is becoming part of our lives right now and possibly become our boss in the future. So sounds very interesting. Make sure to stay with us after the break.
This is Alex. Alex spends most of his time thinking like a trader, still the This is Alex. Alex spends most of his time thinking like a trader, still deciding what to do with his Bitcoin. While Alex waits for the perfect entry, this is Laura. She's watching the S&P drop. Everyone is suddenly a macro expert. She doesn't panic. This is Tom. No screens, no noise, no stress. While Tom focuses on his swing, his Bitcoin focuses on compounding. Because Bitcoiners don't want more dollars. They want more Bitcoin.
I want more Bitcoin.
The best move is letting your Bitcoin work while you plan the next one. Grow by Roxham. One currency, one place.
Welcome back to Roxham TV, and thanks for sticking around with us after the break. We are now getting into the world of more AI story and also tech story. Well, I'm sure a lot of you guys have probably heard of Neuralink, which is the brain chip inserted into your skull, letting you control computers with your thoughts. Of course, that sounds very insane, like science fiction, maybe even Black Mirror, but this is no longer just some future idea. It's already happening when the latest update shows Neuralink's ambitions are getting much bigger. So if this is your first time hearing about the idea, it's actually quite insane. So a simple explanation is that Neuralink is, of course, Elon Musk's baby. Elon Musk, the whole brain computer interface company. And the mission is to connect the human brain directly to computers. The idea is quite simple. Your brain would create some signal, and the chip would read those signals. Software would translate them into commands. So instead of moving your hand, you move a cursor with your thoughts. Yes, when I say with your thoughts, it's literally with your thought. And here's the latest update by the company. So Neuralink said it is now building a much more advanced surgical robot. And this is important, like not just a robot for a small brain implant procedure. The stated goal is a robot that can reach any region of the brain. Of course, that would be a massive jump because now the vision is no longer just helping one condition. The long-term goal is a generalized brain interface, meaning potentially treating many brain-related conditions. And that, I don't know, is a huge escalation. And you might ask, why are we doing this on a robot? Well, here are some of the videos of the Neuralink and how they do implement that to robot. Like the team seems to think the human hands are not precise enough. Neuralink's threads are thinner than human hair. Like imagine trying to place hundreds of microscopic threads into soft brain tissue by hand. Like that's basically impossible. And one Neuralink engineer would describe it like placing a single strand of hair into jello over and over again. That's why the robot matters, and that's why they're building that robot, because they think it improves speed and also accuracy and reduce the chance of damaging blood vessels. Now, this is not just theory anymore. Human trials are happening without us knowing. Actually, there not so much media covering about this news. So real patients already have the implant, and the stories are honestly very incredible. So one of the patients, I'll give you guys some examples. You can do research if you don't trust me, but one of these first patients were actually paralyzed from the neck down. And before Neuralink, there is no digital independency, but after Neuralink, he can now control a computer, he can browse internet, play video games, move a cursor with just thought alone. That is an extraordinary leap, if you ask me. And also, it also affects how humans communicate as well. So like there are some cases like Neuralink right now, all the trials mostly run on patients, like people with some disabilities that they really want to fix. Maybe another step Elon Musk is trying to do is that, oh, what about some human that lost their vision in the latest stage of their lives? If Neuralink could help that as well. And here we have another example. This person have some difficulty when it comes to speaking. What the chip does is that it helps the communication as well. Like not just through voice, basically having a voice that is a clone to the actual person before they actually completely or lost a little bit of their original voice. Like some patients would lose movement. That is, of course, very devastating for these people, these patients. But brain-computer interfaces may help decode those intended speech directly from brain activity, meaning AI can potentially help recreate communication. Because think about it, like, okay, for example, this person may be losing their voice and getting a digital version of communication back. That is really huge and is indeed helping a lot of people. Another patient used the implant to even design 3D objects with thought alone. So there's like no hands movement, no keyboard, literally just brain signals. That changes the conversation. And this is not just healthcare, it's independence and it's work, it's creativity. And it does give all these patients a life and with some purpose, I would say. And of course, that reminds you of Black Mirror, because let's be honest, brain chips sounds very terrifying to some people. Like, what about surveillance? What about like hacking humans? All the thought you could like capture by the AI, by the tech company. What about privacy? Like all these questions come up instantly. And to be fair, those are really valid ethical concerns. But for now, these trials are mostly applied on patients with serious disabilities. So they are like these chips, in other words speaking, they are doing more goods than harms as for right now, as for this stage in our life. And this is indeed some real breakthrough, some real stories happening. And this is where it gets also very wild. If Neuralink can reach different parts of the brain, then theoretically speaking, this expands far beyond cursor control. Like feature possibilities, it could include like a speech restorement, like restoration, or movement restoration, or visible vision restoration. That's why people compare this to science fiction, because the long-term vision is genuinely very hard to ignore. If this works, this could be one of the most important healthcare breakthrough in decades, like helping patients with the spinal injuries, stroke damage, speech loss, potentially blindness one day. That's extraordinary, if you ask me. This could fundamentally change medicine. Now, I do have to over the bad case as well. Like we always need to know both sides of the story. So this is like at the end of the day, it is a brain story, a brain surgery. Like that's very serious. And the concerns are very real. Like we have to think about like the medical risk, the implant durability, privacy concerns, cybersecurity concerns. And one very uncomfortable question is that if technology can read brain signals, who controls that data? The debate, unfortunately, is only beginning. So a lot of people maybe laugh and say Neuralink is just Black Mirror. And honestly, I get that. And even Elon Musk said it's very Black Mirror stuff. But behind this so really weird sci-fi headlines is something genuinely very powerful. Like paralyzed people, control computer, people regaining the independence, potentially speech restoration, and now a robot designed to push this much further. The bigger question is no longer, can this work? The bigger question is, how far are we willing to let this go? And speaking of how far we are willing to add AI into our daily lives, here's another breakthrough. I mean, when it comes to AI, there is new breakthrough every single day. Not just AI, but tech, but you know what I mean? Like, even when it comes to human or robots, they still need AI. Otherwise, it's just like some useless toy. Well, another breakthrough, we have talked about AI replacing jobs, maybe copywriter, maybe encoding, maybe even making videos. How about that? Like, but right now, AI is literally managing human workers because an AI agent just helped run a real cafe in Stockholm. And yes, it actually hired humans. So naturally, the question becomes, are we entering the phase where humans start working for AI? Is AI enslaving us? That we ultimately we're gonna become the slaves of AI? So this story is really interesting. Like a company called Endon Labs run a real world experiment. What they did is that they handed over handed control of a cafe in Stockholm to an AI agent, and they named her. They call it her for some reason instead of it. So they call it her Mona. So Mona is not just a chatbot task. It's like Mona is handling actual business decisions. She's handling real money, real suppliers, real customers, and also there's human staff working for them. Like how insane that is. Like this is not simulations. This is a physical cafe. Like here comes the actual. Okay, I'm not gonna do it now, but like I'm gonna do it in a bit. But like it's actually a physical cafe. And how about this? Like there is another image that many people queuing up to go to this cafe because it's the world first one. It's an AI cafe. And this part is very insane because the AI hired human employees. Like, this part is crazy. Like, what Mona did is that she posted job listing, reviewed those resumes, and rejected some candidates. She also did the interview, they did the very interview to the applicants and also hired baristas. So yes, humans were technically speaking, working under instructions from an AI manager. That sentence alone, that sounds very sci-fi, science fiction, but it did happen. And Mona wasn't just hiring. It handled supplier relationships, ordered inventory, managed deliveries, talked to customers, negotiated deals, handled admin work, and even organized business events. That is, of course, wild. But let's be honest, the AI also did some stupid things, just like us humans do, because AI is not some perfect godlike CEO, at least not just yet in 2026. It did make some hilarious mistakes. So, for example, like at some point, it ordered 120 eggs. Like the problem is the café had no stove. So the staff asked Mona, asked the AI, what exactly are we supposed to do with these eggs? And the AI suggested using the oven. Then the staff had to explain the eggs would probably explode if we just put the entire eggs in the oven. It also orders some weird numbers of random supplies, maybe some missed ordering deadlines as well, and created very expensive last minute problem. So yes, still very human behavior, very weird way though. But here's why this story matters, because like despite this mistake, the cafe actually worked. Like customers were served, they were, of course, like most of them are very happy. This is some new thing. A lot of people are queuing up to try a little bit gimmicky. It's still a little bit gimmicky at this point, but like point being, revenue did come in. Operations continued. That changes the conversation because the question is no longer, can AI help businesses? The question becomes, can AI manage businesses? And that is a bigger shift here. That's a very uncomfortable question we have to ask. Like, honestly, in some narrow ways, like maybe yes, like, are we working for AI? But because if AI can assign tasks, if it can hire workers, manage schedule, handle those purchasing, then technically it becomes management, and us become the workers, or at some point, are we gonna be the slaves of AI? But before we go through Terminator mode, let's calm down for a sec. This was still in a very controlled environment. It's I would say a controlled experiment. Humans were still overseeing things. Humans stepped in when needed. The AI wasn't fully independent, and clearly it still lacked common sense. A lot of common sense we're talking about. Like I just gave out the egg example, like putting the entire egg into oven. So we are not at the robot CEO world domination just yet. But now let's take a look at the more optimistic view. AI managers could actually help business in a way. Like there's a video I can't play right now, but like asking the feedback from the staff working in the cafe. The feedback is quite positive because the AI, you don't really have to go around and care about the emotion. If there's anything wrong, you can just give feedback directly. You don't have to play politics as much. Something like that. Also, I would say quite beneficial. Quite beneficial if you ask me. And not only that, AI, think about it, it doesn't sleep, it doesn't get tired, can process huge amounts of information instantly. It can also optimize schedules or pricing on inventory. So if this is being done right, this could massively improve productivity, especially for repetitive management work. But if we want to go to the dark side, because this is where things get very uncomfortable, if AI becomes smarter than human in decision making, like maybe cheaper than humans, faster than human, then we know what's going to happen. Like, do humans become execution tools? Do we simply follow instructions from robots or AI in the future? That's where the slave analogy start creeping into people's mind. And honestly, that's exactly why these conversations matter right now, not later. And this is not only about this cafe, it's also about control. Like, who makes decision? Who owns the AI? Who owns Mona? Who's accountable when Mona makes bad calls? If an AI fire an employee, then who's responsible? If an AI makes harmful business decision, who gets blamed? That legal and ethical framework barely exists right now. The bigger picture is like, I like this experiment. It matters because it gives us a glimpse of what may be coming. Not humanoid robots chasing humans, but something quieter, like AI managing workflows and coordinating with the teams, making economic decisions. That kind of automation might actually arrive faster than we expected. So if you guys, any of the viewers, go to Stockholm or live in Stockholm, if you guys have a chance, make sure to check it out. And I'd love to know your thoughts about this cafe. Do you think it's worth it? Do you think AI is mature enough to basically handle some real businesses in the real world? I'm very intrigued to know your response. All right, so that's pretty much all I want to cover in today's show. So before you go, make sure to give us a follow on X. My X is jamjamcrypto_io. Make sure to follow Roxham TV as well, because we have regular updates coming out on regular basis, not just about AI, but Bitcoin, global news, geopolitics, and we have content from different hosts, different interviews. So point being, there are so much valuable content here. Make sure to give us a follow on X. And if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, I don't know what you're doing, make sure you do so. And as always, I'm here live Monday through Friday, starting at 3 a.m. 3 a.m. Eastern time. So if you don't manage to catch my shows live, don't worry, the replay is also available on both channels. So being Jam Crypto YouTube channel and also Roxham TV YouTube channel. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have a tremendous weekend, and I'll see you guys next week.
Some call me Chicken Little, others Bubble Boy. I'm a bit changed, but sounds familiar, right? Let me tell you a hard truth. The S&P isn't rising, the dollar's falling. That's the trick, monopoly money. It's ice melting by the second. Your savings, your salary, your time, worth less every second.